Israel has announced tactical pauses in Gaza over the weekend that just passed, allowing what is being called an almost useless trickle of aid into the territory. Let's be real about what this actually means and then give the geopolitical analysis that you won't find, especially on Western legacy media. After facing mounting global pressure over Palestinians literally starving to death, Israel has agreed, how graciously, how generously, to pause fighting for 10 hours daily, but in only three small areas of Gaza. And remember that this is the nation that designated aid sites, Al Mawasi, and then bombed those sites and bombed the people that were on their way to the site. This is the nation that assigns humanitarian aid group GHF to distribute food aid, and then aid seekers are shot and killed there regularly. Al Jazeera reports 92 people have lost their lives in just the last 24 hours. So the result of these generous pauses, 120 trucks of aid on the first day were delivered into Gaza, according to Israel. Humanitarian aid groups, rights organizations, other nations have not confirmed this number or the details of what was actually on the trucks. Because, people can't eat trucks. They eat what's on the trucks, right? Are these trucks empty or are they full? Or are they packed with flour that's been spiked, poisoned flour, like literally we've got evidence of now being done by Israel in the past? They drugged flour and then handed it out as aid. Nobody knows yet, right? The United Nations, by the way, says 500 to 600 trucks are needed daily just to meet basic needs of the 2.3 million people in Gaza. Israel's own Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, admitted they're only allowing, quote, minimal humanitarian supplies, end quote. This latest theatre comes after Israel completely blocked aid into Gaza for the last 2 months, and now voices across the globe are getting louder and louder as Palestinians get hungrier and hungry. The Israeli state is using starvation as a weapon to pressure Palestinian resistance groups into surrendering, because using their super advanced, super cutting edge IDF military capabilities, they couldn't beat in a direct military confrontation unarmored, unhelmeted infantry with no army, air force, armor, tanks, nothing, running around through tunnels using Soviet era small arms rifles. They couldn't hack that with all the technology IDF have. So they targeted instead women and children, an opponent the IDF can manage a lot better, especially if the teenagers don't have rocks. The numbers are devastating. Kind of felt like Trump there. What am I doing? I've lost my mind, guys. The numbers are devastating. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, 133 Palestinians have died from starvation now. In July alone, 63 people died from malnutrition. And for those who don't trust the Gaza Health Ministry, records show from international sources, including humanitarian organizations like Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International, the Red Cross, Red Crescent, Reuters and Al Jazeera, and even Western news sources, legacy media, have confirmed reports that wherever the Gaza Health Ministry has reported historically, the numbers have been absolutely correct later upon verification. So you can, by and large, trust these numbers, as opposed to Israeli hasbara, Israeli propaganda, which time and time again reliably show that Israel says something, turns out it was something completely different, or they say where the victims were getting punched, turns out it's the complete opposite. They were the bully doing the punching of a different victim. It's time and time again that's been the case. And so if they say something now, it's very hard to trust them, because if you trust them, it would be a 180. They would have completely transformed how they report news in terms of its factual, in terms of its fact value. You can clearly see I am not speaking from a script or notes today. July isn't even over yet, and that's 63 people that have died from malnutrition. Just remember that. You know how devastating the food crisis has to be for children to literally be dying from lack of food. They're dying from lack of food, guys. Right? Kids, babies. While food is while food is just across the border, just there, it's just there. There's just food lying around in trucks. Not lying around, lying, packaged and organized by the people of the world on hundreds upon hundreds of trucks, is just waiting there. But the IDF is not allowing it in. Now let's look at the IDF's narrative, the Israeli narrative. They say, no, aid's into Gaza. It's just the UN is not distributing it. So, all aid organizations, lying. United Nations, lying. Palestinian governance of Gaza, liars. All the Arab states, lying. Only Israel by itself is telling the truth. It's us against the world. It's the narrative. It's the narrative that the Israeli state has used time and time again. They make references to religious texts as well, saying, where David, there's a Goliath. Bruv, you are Goliath. The World Health Organization warns this is, quote, mass starvation, and it's entirely man-made. But perhaps there is hope, by the way. Okay, we'll end on this one. There is perhaps hope for the civilians of the besieged Palestinian territory of Gaza. International pressure is finally mounting in ways we haven't seen before. It is improving. Is that enough? But it's improving. 28 countries, for example, including former staunch Israeli allies like the UK and France and Canada, Western nations, have issued joint statements demanding the war, quote, must end now. They're calling Israel's aid restrictions unacceptable and threatening concrete actions. This is very different from what we've seen before, especially from Western nations. They're calling for concrete actions, including sanctions against Israel if they can't follow through and do what is necessary for the civilians of Gaza. And that announcement of the joint statement led by the Western powers came just 5 days after a historic Bogota summit. Bogota is the capital of Colombia, South America. That's where global South nations came together for no other reason than to talk about the Gaza crisis. And they put their own pressure on Israel first, and so the Western nations sort of followed in behind. Palestinian statehood is something France has committed to recognizing. The UK started airdropping aid independently. There's quotes now from the UK government saying the UK will recognize Palestinian statehood within this term, within this administration's time in office. Huge advancements. Even Germany is facing pressure to reconsider its current position, which is very pro-Israel. World War II war-guilt Germany is considering flipping. Mad. Who has, this is the Germany who has been signing blank checks to Israel for Israel to cash in, turning a blind eye to all Israeli crimes, essentially, since before my parents were even born, which means probably before your grandparents were even born. I am so old now, it's not even funny. Anyway, sorry. Just to try and atone for German war guilt from World War II, Germany has and continues to be one of Israel's most staunch, most steadfast supporters. The only nation above Germany is the United States. Now, these aren't small symbolic gestures from France and the UK and Canada and the Western nations and non-Western nations. These are serious. When your closest allies are publicly breaking rank from the status quo, from the understood relationship they have with your state, and they start threatening sanctions even, that's a seismic shift. Right, loads of people are unhappy, you get emotional. I know, of course, it's an emotional situation. We're living through flipping Schindler's List 2.0. But looking at things analytically, the trajectory is bad for Israel, good for the Palestinians. Will there be Palestinians left to enjoy any sort of positive outcome? That's up for debate. Now, Israel's main supporters, what's left is Germany, haunted by its war guilt, and the United States, most of all, biggest supporter, who continues writing those blank checks for diabolical actions by the Israeli state, diplomatic cover. We got you, we got you, BB. But the Western consensus on blind support for Israel is crumbling. The question isn't whether this current starvation campaign is sustainable / acceptable anymore. It's not. The answer is it's not sustainable. The question now is, how much longer Israel's final true supporters, the US and Germany, how much longer will they hold out? Will they continue to support Israel? Too little, too late for the 133 who have already starved to death. Too little, too late for over 15,000 children who have lost their lives. For over, potentially, by some records, 100,000 Palestinians who lost their lives. But better late than never. For the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, I'm Mahfouz, and I'll see you on the next.